Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us, for participating at this new masterclass of ETERIA that with Fabio Tolledi. The masterclass is titled Myth and Tragedy. As for the other masterclass, I will do a little introduction of the project. ETERIA, that enhance transborder experience, rebuild the interactions of artists, is an international project that is coordinated by the International Theatre Institute Italy, in cooperation and collaboration with Theatro Zakynthos from Greece, the AVR lab from the Department of Engineering of Innovation of the University of Salento, the Constanta National History and Archaeology Museum, and the North Macedonian Center of International Theatre Institute. This is the third masterclass of this prologue that is introduce the work that there will be in presence in November, that will start this Friday. 27 with the activities in the school, and they will continue during November, from the 3rd of November until the 14th, with many activities, internal activities, inter-community labs, and clearly with the preparation of the presentation of the materials, of the artistic preparation that there will be coordinated by Fabio Tolledi, that is here to do the masterclass. So thank you very much to everybody. This is an introduction to the work that there will be during the International Artistic Residence in Zakynthos. So it's really important for all of us to follow the work. And yeah, thank you again, and let's start the lesson.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. Yesterday I started to introduce some elements that I wanted to develop, because it's a living matter for me in this moment, because I'm trying to reconsider some elements that are connected with the topic of our research, connected with the dimension of the cultural heritage, connected with the performing arts, with the connection of the ancient Greek drama and the contemporary form of the expression of artistic research. And I have started to reconsider some elements. I have written a text that I think that we can share also when we have started to work in 2006 and 2007 about the connection between, I have called this production of many different writings, destiny and tragedy. And also now we have to reconsider some aspect, and also I think that the first element is to consider the dimension of the conflict in the new border that we can describe, because 20 years ago the historical situation was different, and also in this moment we have a transformation of something. Also the events that we are living in Ukraine or in Palestine, we can suggest us to reconsider some elements, and how these elements are deeply connected with some things. And also I would like to recreate a sort of genealogy of some aspect that we will develop also in the artistic residency in Zakynthos and then in Italy the next month. Well, the first element that some authors has developed in these last years is about the concept of stasis. This is a very important aspect, because Giorgio Agamben, that is an Italian philosopher, very important, has developed his thought in these last 10 years to enter in contact with a concept that was not too much developed in the philosophical debate and in the artistic debate. We have an element very strong present, that is the civil war. What is the concept of civil war? Because we have like a contradiction, a basic contradiction. The base of the culture generally is something connected with the idea of that the war is something wrong that happened in a society, that happened in a period, in a historical period, like an element of suspension of the civic dimension, of the civil dimension of the human being. But we know very well from the most important theory of the idea of war, that is an Austrian thoughter, that is Clausewitz, that has developed in the beginning of 19th century the idea about what is war. War is a very typical human aspect of the living. It's not an exceptionality of something, but we can consider also in the idea of Clausewitz, the peace, the period of peace is just a suspension of the war. It's not the contrary that we used to say that the war is an exceptional situation that we have in the normal procedure of the life. But the peace is the exceptionality. And also in the European side, we know very well, from the Second World War until the Balkanian, ex-Yugoslavia context, we have a very long period in which we have not a classical form of war. We have a lot of conflict, local dimension of conflict, but not clearly a dimension of war. This is also the perspective also to understand what is the spatial dimension that we have started to live from the end, the fall of the wall of Berlin and the finish of the contraposition between two blocks, USA and Soviet Union. This double dimensional has transformed also the idea of war, and also the idea of the war to terrorism that has started to be conducted by the United States is another aspect that has transformed the idea and the concept of the war. It's not just a war of a army against another. If you start to work against the terror and the terrorism, you are fighting against a strategy, an idea to conduct the war. Also, just to give some other coordinate, one of the most important philosophers and theorics of the dimension of the conflict in the 20th century is Carl Schmitt, that has written something very precise about the condition of the partisan and the war. What is the dimension of the partisan? You know, in Greece or in Italy, the resistance to Nazi fascism was also in Yugoslavia, was conducted by not an army recognized, because was not a state recognized, but were some people that organized in not formal way, not with a uniform, not with a protocol of hierarchy of army, and start to do a war, and a winning war. Sometimes you can heard by geopolitics and theoreticians of politics in this period to the using of the another concept very important, the asymmetrical war. We are living a condition of asymmetrical war. This aspect conduct us to try to redefine some elements. One of the elements very important is to consider the stasis, the civil war, like an element that can characterize the fight of civilization. I use also this term because it's a geopolitical concept used in the United States to justify the policies in the last 30 years. Was Huntington, the author, and then I'll write you all the references, that has written a very important essay that comes from an idea of another historian. That was Fukuyama. The name is Japanese, but he is American, United States. That he started to say, now the history is finished. We are in a period post-historical dimension, a dissolution of the historical framework. And Huntington, after this, that he was a scholarship on the Fukuyama, written an essay very important to understand what is the address of the philosophy of the empire that is dominating the world in this moment. That is the clash of civilization. What is the clash of civilization? Is to recognize some elements to justify the exercise of Pax Americana through the weapon and the army, through the introduce and to give authority to the model of empire in the domination. And the idea is very, very strong because recognize some elements that can characterize this clash of civilization. One of the aspects are completely cultural because it's the differences between religions. Now, perhaps because we are formed by the continuous speech that everyone can produce and reproduce, it's not easy to understand this aspect, but at the end of the 80s, the role of religion was not so strong. This dimension of give more emphasis to religion start to create a framework in which the clash of civilization can happen. And this is a justification to create a presence of army, a presence of the military solution, because you have to create a presence of balance, of peacekeeping in different contexts. And this is a framework in which we can justify the dimension of the conflict. Also, for this reason, it's very important to come back to the origin of the stasis. In the material that I have sent to you this morning, I have sent you 3 books, very interesting, very strong, of Nicole Leroux. One of these is the Experiences of Theresia, and the subtitle is The Feminine and the Greek Man. In this work, Nicole Leroux start to face the experiences of Theresia. You know, the figure of the myth of Theresia is very interesting because he is man, then became a woman, then come back to be a man, then he is blind. Why he is blind in the myth? Because he starts to have an experience of sorry, I'm trying to find the right term in English. The experiences of Theresia, its title referring to the shepherd struck blind after glimpsing Athena's naked body, captures this ambivalence in exploring how the Greek male defines himself in a relationship to the feminine. This is the position very interesting of Leroux. The Greek men define themselves like a man in connection with the feminine experience. And also this is the line generally that Leroux tried to develop. The women has no possibility to speak, has not the opportunity to be appeared in society. There is a very strong, the Athenians culture is strongly connected with the dimension of the mankind, that dimension of the man gender. The man gender is something that can be visible, can be expressed, and the women are not visible. But in the tragedy, we know very well that are the women that always create the condition of the transformation of the plot, of the transformation of the story. And this aspect is very important to consider how move this, how we can find this transformation of the dynamic of society in which the figure of women has no representativeness, has not a voice, but in the meanwhile is the position of the women that can create the definition of the man. The feminine process is something that created the identity of the man. And we enter in a very strong contact with the function of the myth. Okay. We have said yesterday, we just do a very, very brief references to some element. One of these is connected with Friedrich Nietzsche. And also it's clear that it was very important also to focus some other aspects. Also, it's very interesting to observe that Pierluigi Greco is co-founded by the European Union. No, it's disappeared. No, now it's okay. It's again Pierluigi Greco. No, it's not European Union. That is straight because you have the face like the circle of the stars of the European Union. We can do a montage on it. Okay, Nietzsche refer also. We have to be very clear about some aspects because Nietzsche was a philologist, but when he writes the birth of tragedy by the spirit of the music, he received a very huge critics by the philologists that disapproved completely the operation that Nietzsche produced. But what is the aim, the need of Nietzsche? That we can find again in Artaud, and we will see in the end of this masterclass, we can find also in Grotowski's work. What is the dimension? Nietzsche tried to find a connection, an older connection. The foundation of the tragedy stay before the tragedy. The foundation of tragedy is not in the tragic text, but stay in something that stay before. And what is before is the myth, is the organization of the contact and the interpretation of the reality, of the real life of the women and the men. We know very well that in the myth, the role of the women, of the goddess, it's very important, is essential. We can consider Demetra, we have said yesterday about Mnemosyne, with all the part we can find this, we can find, and also Dionysus. Dionysus is both man and woman. Is not a male myth, is not a male god. Dionysus is the god of the ambiguity. And we know very well that the rationalists need, and the Apollinian approach need the order. But like we have said yesterday, Dionysus is the mixing experience. Is not clear. We know very well that the Menadism are female, are women. Is a myth strongly connected with the women dimension. Also with the Tarantism in South Italy, this region, is that women ritual is one, is not a male ritual, but there is a confusion, is a chaotic dimension, not the order and just the position of the clear genders, is a dimension of combined, of confused, of losing of the rationals aspect of our life. Dionysus is the god that dances. This is the first definition that we have. And this is the starting definition of Nietzsche. Understand what is dancing. Dancing is the rhythm of something. That there is an affirmation, a sentence that we have difficulties now in the debate of the last 20 years that we can accept that because there is a new redefinition of what is animal and animality. But Nietzsche said that animal doesn't dance. He has not the idea of the cultural rhythm organized on an approach connected with the time of the transformation of this. But the reference to the Dionysus figure is the ambiguity of the animality and humanity. It's something connected. Also, please try to remember that. Also, I am very happy because when I have prepared this masterclass last night, I have found that in English translation of the Birth of Tragedy of Nietzsche, they use the word chorus. Now we can use without not choir. They use chorus like an element because I'm sure that is more precise on this, because chorus is more connected with the dimension of singing, dancing, and staying in the rhythm. Rhythm, ritual, and arts, they have the same root of the name. The RI of ritual, RI of rhythm, and also the dimension of arts. The R, the letter R, is something connected with the figure of Ares, the god of the strength and the god of the conflict. This is essential aspect because we can find in Dionysus a dimension of the conflict, the resistances and the explosion of the conflict, of the explosion of the passions, like not something of abandoning humanity, but discovering what is unspeakable, that is our animality. We can say that we are animal. Everyone is animal. We are unable to recognize this animality that we have, but we know very well that in our connection with the vital aspects of our life, when we drink, when we eat, when we have erotic experience, we stay in a condition of animality, not only in a condition of the mental dimension or rational dimension. Of course, if you enter with the element of the desire and pleasure, we have a cultural transformation of this animality, transformed not only, we know that the animalities, when you are hungry, you need to eat, to give the food, the alimentation, the nutrition to your body. But when you start to cook and to prepare something for a person that you love, that you start to prepare something very good, you are doing a cultural action of transformation of the desire. Also, another aspect that Nietzsche faces is the human being stay in connection with the desire, with the transformation of the desire, like a cultural transformation of something. Also, perhaps our life in performing arts is something strongly connected with this aspect. And when we say about the birth of tragedy by the spirit of the music of Nietzsche, that is a very controversial also version because was a very early production of Nietzsche. Then we have the introduction of Wagner because there was a very strong relationship between Nietzsche and Wagner. And then there is a very strong separation of Nietzsche with Wagner, and Nietzsche doesn't recognize in a certain moment the old part of his production, this work. But the version, the second version of the birth of tragedy is connected with the ancient level of Greek thought and pessimism, negativity. This was transformed by the spirit of music. We arrived Greek thought and pessimism. This is a transformation of the text to adjust something. But in the same moment, we can say the references of Nietzsche to Dionysus is to find the root of the tragedy in the myth, not the institutionalization of the tragedy in a gender of dramatic art. It's something that stays before what Nietzsche is looking for. And this is connected. We have a passage very important by the philological idea, the tragic like a gender of writing, to the vital nucleus of the chorus and its roots. But because one of the most important aspects is the tragedy, the culture, the cultural production is the effort to exit by the animality and to enter in a dimension of civilization. Also remember the clash of civilization like an element that is living in the political debate and theory and justification of the world. It's not something of the ancient time. What I want to stress is the actual dimension of the conflict. And we are speaking on this to find the element of the cultural aspect of the process. But first, the question of Nietzsche remains the same question also for me. What is chorus? Is a very strong question. What is chorus? We know very well, and also I have sent for you also the books of Vernon and Vidal-Naquet about myth and tragedy. What is chorus? Chorus exists before the tragedy. Chorus is something connected with the ritual. We have, and remember always, we have the skene, we have the stage, but under the skene, we have the altar of Dionysus. And the people are dancing and singing on the altar. And skene is something, I have written something on this, if you are interested, of course, about an idea that I have, that I want to develop more and to study more with some Hebrew scholars, because there is a concept in Hebrew mysticism that is Shekinah. Shekinah is the female manifestation of God. And Shekinah is represented by a tent, by a curtain. But the skene in the origin is also a curtain. There is a book also of Carlosini that I have found this night, last night, about the curtain, because it's a philosophical concept, very, very precise. Why we need the curtain in theater? What is, and also why we need the curtain in an Orthodox church in which the icon appears? What is this dimension of appearance of something? Something that just exists, not something that appears, because it's not the concept of appearance, is something to rediscover something. And please remember this, because when at the end I'll read you some lines of Grotowski, our performer, you will find again this idea. And also for me, briefly, Shekinah, the female expression of God, and the spirit of writing also is the Shekinah in the mystic Hebrew culture. And the skene connected with the curtain in which something appear first, and the singing and dancing chorus. We know every time in all the book, also at school, in high school, we can say before the theater, the ritual connected to Dionysus of people that dance and singing around the altar of Dionysus. Then we know that Thespis was the first one that started to be an actor that is speaking in relation with the chorus. And it's very interesting, this dimension, that we have a transformation with the institutionalization of the tragedy, like an element in which is the subjectivity they enter and take the first part, the preeminent part, to the chorus. And the chorus is transformed in something that can help, an accessoire, is not something important, it's just a description. But, like our friend Onur said, we know what is the structure of the tragedy. Parodos, Stasimo, Exodus. The three parts are always defined by chorus, not by the protagonist or antagonist. The central part, Stasimo, is the singing of the chorus that divide one episode to another. But this part is not just a connection. We know very well in the 20th century what is the role of montage with Eisenstein, with the idea of the montage, that is something that creates the artistic experience of the performing arts. But in this case, is the chorus that manages the montage, that creates the rhythm. And the rhythm is something that stays before the writing. The rhythm is something that also, what is the role, you know, my connection with the poetry. I consider myself a person, I don't know if I am, okay, but I don't know if I am a poet, but I try to write poem. But also poem is not speech. Poem is a rhythm, is a sound, is a singing, is a dancing. And also, please remember always that. And also, I think that the great part of the person that are present on the Zoom now, what is the sense of the work of the movement that comes from the idea of Hecate in Constanta. But what is this dimension of the moving of different groups that is doing a repetition of movement and create something? What is this? Yeah, of course, it's something connected with the animals of Qigong. But what are these repetition? What is this rhythm? Is a dance. Is not a story. It's not a storytelling. It's something that stays connected with the root. Okay, I'm sorry because, of course, to speak about this we need, but always. I have said yesterday about mnemosyne, and also remember the final universal project of Abi Warburg, on which I have written something in these last years, and it's very important. The project of Abi Warburg, the title of the project is Atlas of Mnemosyne. Mnemosyne Atlas is the idea of the project of Abi Warburg. And also, we have another aspect very important in the idea, in the aspect of Abi Warburg. Find to recognize something, recall something that we have known and we have lost. There is a definition of Carlosini that I have studied in this period, that is, the memory is the witnesses of the lost state. We are remembering, always remembering, call in our body a memory of something that is very, very old, it's very ancient. Remembering. Member is like the members of the body, the part of the body. Recall the members of the body to something that we have lost. Also, please remember what is the figure of Dionysus always when we speak about the myth and the tragedy. Dionysus is the god of the life and of the death, of the male and female, of the unknown child and of the furious bull. We have a figure of oppositions in Dionysus. And this figure of opposition is something real, living. It's not that, because we know very, very clearly, if we have only rational dimension of the human being, we are losing a very important part of our life. Also, I want to recall you that we have another aspect, is the overlap in the cultural dynamic of the figure of Dionysus, also with the figure of Jesus Christ. We have a lot of connection of the figure of Jesus Christ with the figure of Dionysus. And also, there are a lot of studies very interesting about the female characters of the profile of the face of Jesus Christ. The Jesus Christ is a female aspect. Also, the beard defines a male dimension, but the figure and the long hair is something that is connected with this dimension of ambiguous. But also, the figure of the Virgin is something connected with the ambiguity. Is son of the man and of the God. Is the son of ambiguity, this dimension. Also, there is another very interesting studies about the figure of Adonis, because Jesus was born near the wood dedicated to Adonis. This element is create a connection very deep and very strong with the female dimension, with the experience of beauties, with the erotic dimension too. And this dimension of overlap is something that we always have to maintain very clear. Also to stop and also to ask you if you have some question, but of course we have many other elements that we can develop. We can define the chorus like something that is built by the ancestral memory. The using of the singing, the using of dancing is something connected with something that stays before dimension of our knowledge. It's something that recall our ancestral dimension. Only a question, an open question. The ritual in all the cultures are connected deeply with the dimension of singing and dancing. There is no ritual with no dancing and with no singing. And this is before the writing. It's before the writing. Also, in Italy, we have the analphabetism at the end of 19th century was the more or less 85% of the population was analphabet. And the experience of the religiosity was present. It's not something connected with the reading action, with the culture of the book. It's something connected with the dimension more various and more open. And also usual when we have worked in different cultures in connection with ritual, with the experience of trances, always is not something writing. It's something connected with the dancing and singing. To finish, I want to share with you can you see?
No.
Ok. No, avevo preparato. Okay. Allora, this is the starting text of Performer of Zakynthos. I'll share with you also in the performer with a capital letter is a man of action. He's not somebody who plays another. He's a doer, a priest, a warrior. He is outside aesthetic genres. Ritual is performance, an accomplished action, an act. Degenerated ritual is a show. I don't look to discover something new, but something forgotten. Something so old that all distinction between aesthetic genres are no longer of use. I think that this is very clear. And also, then, what I recall, one access to the creative way consists of discovery in yourself an ancient corporality to which you are bound by a strong ancestral relation. So you are neither in the character nor in the not character. Starting from details, you can discover in you somebody other, your grandfather, your mother, a photo, a memory of wrinkles, the distant echo of a color of the voice enabled to reconstruct a corporality. Okay. Also, if you can see also before, there is a very clear of quotation. Performer is a state of being, a man of knowledge. We can speak of him in reference to Castaneda's novels if we like romanticisms. I prefer to think of Pierre de Combast or even of this Don Juan whom Nietzsche described, a rebel face to whom knowledge stands as duty. Even if others don't curse him, he feels to be a changeling, an outsider. Okay, now we will share also the text of the performer that you know. It's very important for me. But, okay, now it's up to you if you have some question, because, okay.
Yes, we will close
you,
now the live streaming. Thank you very much, Fabio. And we will continue with the questions on Zoom directly. So thank you very much for all to everybody that follow the masterclass, and continue to follow the ETERIA project with all the activities that there will be the next months. Thank you very much again, and see you.